7-foot Apache woman laughed at the idea of breeding with a cowboy until she got pregnant. Tala was unlike anyone else in her tribe. From the moment she was born, people noticed she was different. Even as a child, she towered over everyone else, her tiny frame already hinting at the incredible height she would reach. By the time she was a teenager, she had grown to an astonishing 7 feet tall. Her height made her an unmistakable figure wherever she went. People in her village often stared, whispered, or even stared in awe, but Tala never let it bother her. She carried herself with a calm confidence that made her both respected and slightly feared. Despite her size, Tala moved gracefully. She was as strong as she was tall, but there was a softness in her movements that surprised many who first met her. She could lift heavy objects with ease, run faster than most of the young men in her village, and handle the hardest work on the reservation without complaint. But it wasn't just her physical strength that made Tala remarkable, it was her spirit. She had a free, independent soul and a mind of her own. From an early age, she refused to follow the path that others expected of her, and she had no desire to be tied down by anyone's rules or expectations. Her parents loved her fiercely. They were proud of their daughter, though they sometimes worried about her. Being 7 feet tall in a world made for shorter people was not easy. Clothes had to be specially made, and shoes were nearly impossible to find. Yet, Tala never complained. She took challenges in stride, often laughing at things others would consider obstacles. Her mother often said that Tala had the heart of a warrior and the soul of a free bird. Tala herself didn't pay much attention to what others thought of her. She had her own way of doing things and preferred to live life on her own terms. The other women in the tribe looked up to her, admiring her strength and independence. They would often come to her for advice, whether it was about hunting, gathering, or solving conflicts. Men, however, were another story. Many tried to impress her, but Tala had no interest in their attention. She found most of their attempts clumsy or foolish. Tala laughed easily, but if a man tried to flirt or show off, she would dismiss him with a wave of her hand or a quiet, knowing smile that left him embarrassed. Some men were persistent, but none could pierce the shield of independence that Tala had built around herself. Tala loved the land. She spent hours walking through the forests and plains near her village, feeling the wind on her face and listening to the sounds of nature. She was connected to the earth in a way that few could understand. Every tree, every river, every stone seemed to hold a story, and she took pleasure in discovering those stories as she moved through the world. Hunting and tracking were her favorite activities. She could follow the faintest footprints through the forest, spot animals hiding in the brush, and move silently without disturbing a leaf or twig. It was during these moments, alone with the land, that Tala felt most alive. Despite her independence, Tala was not lonely. She had a close group of friends among the younger members of the tribe who admired her courage and strength. They would often join her on hunts or adventures, and she took care to teach them what she knew. She wanted them to be strong, smart, and capable, just as she had learned from her parents and elders. She had a way of inspiring those around her without even trying, simply by being herself, confident, fearless, and true to her own path. The elders of the tribe often told stories about the past, about the ancestors who had fought, survived, and thrived in difficult times. Tala loved these stories and would listen intently, imagining the lives of those who had come before her. She felt a connection to them, a sense of responsibility to honor their strength and wisdom. But she also felt a responsibility to herself, to live her own life fully and without compromise. She was determined to carve her own path, to be remembered not just for her size but for her spirit and courage. As Tala grew older, her reputation spread beyond the tribe. Travelers and traders passing through would hear of the 7-foot-tall Apache woman and sometimes came to see her for themselves. They would stare in disbelief, whisper among themselves, and sometimes even ask her to demonstrate her strength. Tala never minded these visits. She enjoyed showing her abilities, but she never did so to impress anyone. Her strength was simply a part of who she was, nothing more. Despite her fame, Tala remained humble. She lived simply, worked hard, and valued honesty, courage, and respect above all else. She did not seek attention or praise, though she received it in abundance. She knew that her height and strength were gifts, and she used them to help others whenever she could. Whether it was lifting heavy loads, protecting the village from danger, or teaching younger members of the tribe, Tala was always willing to step up when needed. Romance, however, was something she never considered. She had seen how love and relationships could complicate life, and she valued her freedom too much to let anyone control her or slow her down. The idea of a man trying to claim her or tie her to a life she did not want made her laugh. Many suitors came and went, offering gifts, flattery, or empty promises, but Tala remained unconvinced. She had no need for anyone else to complete her life. She was already complete on her own. Yet in her heart, Tala sometimes wondered what it would be like to share her life with someone who truly understood her, who saw beyond her size and strength to the woman inside. But she quickly dismissed such thoughts. She had always been independent, and she did not want to change who she was for anyone. Life was for living, and she would live it on her own terms, come what may. One morning, as the sun rose over the plains, Tala stood at the edge of the village, looking out at the horizon. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink, the air crisp and fresh. She felt a sense of peace, a deep satisfaction in knowing that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The world was full of challenges and surprises, but she was ready for whatever came her way. Her height, her strength, and her independence were not burdens. They were her gifts, and she would use them to shape her destiny. As the village began its daily activities, Tala moved among her people with quiet confidence. She greeted the elders, helped the children, and offered her guidance where needed. Her presence commanded respect, not through fear but through the sheer force of her character. People trusted her, admired her, and in some ways depended on her. And yet, despite the attention and admiration, Tala remained herself, untouched by vanity or pride. Her life was simple, but it was full. Every day brought new challenges, new lessons, and new opportunities to grow stronger, wiser, and more capable. Tala embraced each day with courage and joy, knowing that her journey was hers alone to shape. She was a giant among her people, not just in height, but in heart, spirit, and determination. And though she laughed at the foolishness of some who tried to win her affection, she also knew that life had a way of surprising even the most independent souls. Tala's story was only beginning. Her days of solitude and independence were just one part of a larger journey that would test her in ways she could not yet imagine. But for now, she stood tall, proud, and unafraid, ready to face the world on her own terms. And in that moment, surrounded by the land she loved and the people she respected, Tala felt truly alive. Life in the village continued as it always had, with daily routines, shared labor, and the quiet rhythm of nature guiding the people. Tala, towering and confident, moved through it all with ease. She was focused on her own tasks, enjoying the freedom of her independence, and she rarely thought much about outsiders. But one morning, a new presence arrived, a man who would change the course of her days in ways she could never have predicted. The man rode a worn horse along the dusty trail that led into the village. He was a cowboy, rough around the edges, with a weathered hat pulled low over his eyes and boots caked with dirt from the long journey. His name was Clayton, and though he had traveled many miles through sun and storm, his eyes still held a spark of curiosity and determination. He was strong and capable, yet there was something approachable about him, a quiet confidence that came not from his strength, but from his calm demeanor. Clayton had heard stories of the Apache village from other travelers, stories of the people's bravery, of their connection to the land, and of one woman who was said to be as tall as the tallest man and as strong as the strongest. Naturally, his curiosity had brought him here. As he rode into the settlement, he could see the villagers stopping to stare, whispers traveling quickly through the air. His eyes scanned the crowd, and then he saw her, Tala, moving gracefully among her people, tall and commanding even in her natural ease. He was struck, not just by her height, but by the sense of self-assuredness that radiated from her. She carried herself like someone who had lived her life without fear, someone whose presence demanded respect without needing to demand it. Clayton felt a mix of awe and admiration, and he knew instantly that meeting her would be the most important reason for his visit. As he approached, the villagers grew curious, warning him quietly of her reputation. "She does not entertain foolishness," an elder said. "Do not think to charm her. She is her own master." Clayton nodded, appreciating the warning, though a part of him felt eager for the challenge. There was something about a strong spirit that drew him in, something about independence that demanded respect and careful attention. Tala noticed him immediately, of course. She was used to visitors staring or whispering, but there was something different about this man. He did not look intimidated, nor did he attempt to put on airs. He simply walked with purpose, meeting her gaze with steady eyes. Tala raised an eyebrow, a small, skeptical smile playing on her lips. She had no time for foolishness, and the idea that some wandering cowboy might capture her attention, or even her respect, seemed almost laughable. Clayton, however, was not deterred. He spoke politely, introducing himself and asking if he might rest and resupply in the village. Tala listened carefully, noting his manners, his calm voice, and the lack of arrogance in his tone. Still, she found the situation amusing. Here was a man, small in comparison to her, attempting to interact with someone who had been larger, stronger, and more capable than any man he had likely met before. She laughed quietly to herself at the thought, shaking her head at the audacity. The villagers, sensing an interesting dynamic unfolding, watched closely. They had never seen someone approach Tala with such respect and composure, and they were curious to see how she would react. Tala, for her part, decided to humor the man, though she made it clear from the beginning that she was not interested in friendship, romance, or anything of that sort. She treated him politely, showing him where he could find water and a place to rest, but her towering presence and frank demeanor left no doubt about her boundaries. Clayton accepted her guidance without complaint, following her through the village as she moved with her usual grace. He observed everything, how she interacted with the children, how she helped the elders, and how her presence seemed to calm and inspire those around her. The more he saw, the more his admiration grew. He was careful not to overstep, not to try to impress her with feats or words, knowing that true respect could not be demanded, it had to be earned. Over the next few days, Clayton became a quiet fixture in the village. He helped with chores, assisted in repairs, and shared stories of his travels. Tala watched him with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. He was competent, yes, but could he understand her world? Could he respect her independence, her strength, and her connection to her people? Tala was determined to find out, though she kept her distance, laughing silently at the thought that any man could capture her attention. One afternoon, a small problem arose in the village. A young horse had broken free from its tether and was running toward the edge of a steep ravine. The villagers panicked, unsure how to stop it without endangering themselves. Tala reacted immediately, sprinting with astonishing speed and skill to intercept the animal. She reached out, managing to calm the horse and guide it back to safety. Clayton had followed at a distance, watching her every move with admiration and careful observation. When the crisis was over, Clayton approached her. "You have an incredible gift," he said quietly. "I've never seen anyone move like that." Tala smiled, nodding but offering no other response. She had long accepted her abilities as part of who she was, but hearing acknowledgement from someone outside her tribe sparked a small, unexpected warmth. She said nothing further, leaving him to wonder if his words had made any impression at all. As the days passed, Tala found herself noticing Clayton more than she expected. He was steady, reliable, and respectful in a way that was rare. He did not try to show off, did not attempt to dominate conversations, and did not seem intimidated by her size or strength. In fact, he treated her as an equal, recognizing her skill and intelligence without attempting to diminish or challenge it. Tala, who had always valued independence above all, found this quality quietly compelling, though she would never admit it aloud. Despite her growing awareness of him, Tala continued to laugh at the idea of any romantic connection. A cowboy? Really? The thought was almost absurd. She was 7 feet tall, strong, and independent. Why would anyone, especially a man she barely knew, expect to share a life with her? Yet, as much as she laughed at the idea, she could not ignore the way he quietly became part of the rhythms of the village, how his presence seemed to fit naturally into their lives without disruption. Tala began to observe him in small ways. She noticed how he spoke to the children with patience, how he helped the elders without expecting praise, and how he respected the land as if he understood its language. Clayton had his own quiet strength, a steady confidence that did not rely on force or dominance. Tala found herself intrigued, though she fought hard not to let it show. She would laugh inwardly at her own thoughts, reminding herself that she had no interest in any man, no matter how capable or kind he might be. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of gold and purple, Clayton approached Tala while she was gathering herbs near the river. He spoke gently, asking about her life, her work, and the land she loved so dearly. Tala answered cautiously, testing his curiosity and patience. She was used to men who were impatient, men who wanted to rush her or claim her attention. Clayton, however, listened carefully, asking thoughtful questions and showing genuine interest in her answers. For the first time, Tala began to wonder if someone could truly understand her world, if someone could see her as more than her size or her strength. Yet she laughed quietly at the thought. It was impossible, she told herself. She was independent, fearless, and self-sufficient. No man could ever match her in spirit, and no man could ever hold her heart. Still, she could not deny the faint pull of curiosity, the sense that perhaps this cowboy was unlike anyone she had ever met. Days turned into weeks and the village grew accustomed to Clayton's presence. He continued to work, to help, and to quietly earn the trust and respect of the people. Tala, despite her laughter and skepticism, began to notice small changes in herself. She found moments of anticipation when he was near, a quiet enjoyment of his company, and a growing respect for his patience and thoughtfulness. Yet she kept these feelings to herself, laughing inwardly at the idea that she might be affected at all. Tala's independence remained her guiding principle, but something subtle had shifted. The arrival of Clayton, the cowboy with calm eyes and a steady presence, had introduced an element of surprise into her otherwise predictable world. She could not foresee what the future held, nor could she predict how this stranger might affect her life. All she knew was that, for the first time, she was beginning to notice someone in a way that went beyond mere observation or curiosity. And so life in the village continued, with Tala moving through her days as she always had, strong, independent, and proud. Yet beneath her laughter and skepticism, a quiet seed of interest had been planted, a seed that, in time, would grow into something far more powerful than she could imagine. Clayton, unaware of the storm he might stir, remained patient, respectful, and steadfast, knowing that true connection could not be forced, but could only develop naturally with trust, understanding, and care. Little did either of them know that the arrival of this wandering cowboy was the beginning of a journey that would test their strength, challenge their beliefs, and change their lives forever. Tala, the towering Apache woman who laughed at the idea of romance, was about to discover that life often unfolds in ways no one can predict, and that sometimes the most unexpected people leave the deepest impact. The days in the village passed with their familiar rhythm, yet a subtle tension began to grow, one that neither Tala nor Clayton could ignore. They had spent weeks together now, observing each other, learning each other's ways, and quietly testing the limits of trust. Tala remained fiercely independent, laughing inwardly at the idea of becoming attached to anyone, especially a wandering cowboy. Yet there was a new awareness, a spark of curiosity that she could not entirely dismiss. One morning, the village faced a challenge that would change everything. A group of wild mustangs had wandered dangerously close to the village, their hooves thundering against the dry earth, kicking up dust and alarming the people. The horses were panicked, and there was a risk of them charging through the settlement, knocking over fences and causing injuries. The elders and villagers were tense, unsure how to handle the situation without endangering themselves. Tala immediately took charge. Her height, strength, and knowledge of animals made her uniquely capable of managing the crisis. She moved with grace and confidence, positioning herself near the edge of the stampede. With a calm, steady voice, she began to guide the wild horses, using hand signals and soft words to calm them. Clayton watched closely, impressed by her control and bravery. He knew he could not match her skill, but he could assist, and he moved quickly to help, positioning himself to prevent any horses from veering dangerously close to the villagers. As they worked together, a quiet understanding formed between them. Clayton followed her instructions without hesitation, respecting her knowledge and leadership. Tala, in turn, allowed him to assist, recognizing his calm demeanor and courage. They communicated without words at times, moving as if they had rehearsed the actions 1,000 times, though in truth it was the first moment they had faced such danger together. By the time the wild horses were safely guided away from the village, both were breathing heavily, adrenaline still racing, yet a quiet satisfaction settled over them. After the chaos subsided, Clayton turned to Tala. "You were incredible," he said quietly, his eyes reflecting genuine admiration. "I've never seen anyone handle a situation like that." Tala nodded, accepting the compliment but offering no more. She was used to praise for her abilities, but there was something in his voice that made it feel different, not just acknowledgement but deep respect. She found herself pausing just for a moment to consider the man beside her, and a small, almost imperceptible warmth settled in her chest. Over the following days, their interactions began to shift subtly. They continued to work alongside each other, but there was a new layer of connection, one built on trust and mutual respect. Tala noticed how Clayton anticipated her needs, how he moved carefully to avoid overstepping boundaries, and how he offered help without expecting thanks. It was unlike any other man she had encountered. Most had tried to impress her, to dominate or control situations, but Clayton simply fit into her world naturally, quietly proving that he could be a partner without challenging her independence. One afternoon, Tala invited Clayton to join her on a walk through the nearby forest. She had always loved these solitary excursions, but now she wanted to share the experience, to see if he could truly understand the land as she did. As they walked, she pointed out plants used for medicine, explained the tracks of animals they saw along the trail, and shared stories of her ancestors who had lived in harmony with the land. Clayton listened attentively, asking questions that showed genuine interest, not just curiosity. Tala found herself smiling more than she expected. She laughed at Clayton's occasional missteps, tripping over roots or startling at small animals. But it was a warm, playful laugh, not the dismissive kind she used with others. Clayton laughed with her, never making her feel small or less capable. It was a rare experience for Tala, one that she quietly cherished, though she would never admit it aloud. The bond between them deepened over shared challenges. One day, a heavy storm swept through the area, bringing strong winds and sudden rain. The river near the village began to swell, threatening to flood low-lying areas. Tala and Clayton worked side by side, helping to reinforce barriers, guiding livestock to safety, and ensuring the villagers remained secure. They relied on each other, anticipating each other's movements and solving problems together. By the end of the storm, both were soaked, exhausted, yet a sense of accomplishment and mutual trust had grown stronger than ever. During these moments, Tala began to notice small details about Clayton that she had overlooked before. She noticed the steadiness of his hands, the thoughtfulness in his actions, and the patience in his eyes. He never sought to overshadow her strength, never attempted to assert dominance, and never underestimated her abilities. For the first time, Tala realized that strength could come in many forms, not just physical power but patience, respect, and understanding. She felt a quiet admiration for him, though she fought hard not to let it become something more. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned shades of orange and purple, Clayton and Tala sat by the fire outside the village. The warmth of the flames reflected in their faces, and the quiet sounds of the night surrounded them. They spoke softly, sharing stories of their pasts. Clayton spoke of his travels, the people he had met, and the lessons he had learned. Tala shared memories of her childhood, her family, and the moments that had shaped her into the woman she was today. For the first time, Tala felt a deep sense of connection with another human being, someone who did not try to change her, someone who accepted her fully, yet still inspired her to consider new perspectives. She laughed quietly at the absurdity of it all, remembering how she had once scoffed at the idea of a cowboy entering her life. And yet, here he was, not just entering her life but fitting seamlessly into it. Despite the growing closeness, Tala remained cautious. She had spent her entire life valuing independence, and she knew that attachment could bring both joy and pain. She continued to maintain boundaries, testing Clayton's patience and observing how he respected her space. Each time he passed these tests, her admiration grew, though she still refused to entertain romantic notions openly. She told herself that her independence was paramount, and she could not afford to be swayed by emotions that might complicate her life. Yet there were moments when she could not deny the pull between them. When Clayton helped her carry a heavy load, when he quietly ensured her safety, when he listened without judgment, these small gestures left a mark on her heart. She found herself thinking of him when he was not around, noticing his absence in subtle ways. It was confusing and unfamiliar, but not unwelcome. She laughed quietly at herself, realizing that even the strongest, most independent person could be touched by kindness and respect. The village began to notice the change as well. People whispered about the unusual connection forming between Tala and Clayton, though both remained discreet, careful not to let rumors overshadow their interactions. The elders observed with curiosity, noting that Tala, who had always been fiercely self-reliant, seemed more open, more willing to accept help, and more willing to engage with someone outside her tribe. Clayton, too, earned the respect of the villagers, proving himself not just competent but honorable and trustworthy. As the weeks turned into months, their partnership strengthened. They faced small challenges together, solved problems side by side, and continued to learn from one another. Tala began to see that strength was not diminished by accepting help, nor was independence threatened by companionship. Clayton, in turn, learned to respect boundaries, to value patience, and to understand the depth of Tala's connection to her people and her land. One day, while walking through the plains, Clayton spoke softly. "I've never met anyone like you, Tala," he said. "You are strong, fearless, and remarkable, and yet you have a way of seeing the world that I cannot stop thinking about." Tala laughed quietly, shaking her head. "I told you," she said, "I am not interested in any man, especially a cowboy like you." Clayton smiled, not with arrogance but with understanding. He did not push her, did not argue. He simply nodded, respecting her words, even as he quietly hoped that one day she might reconsider. That evening, as they returned to the village, Tala found herself reflecting on the past weeks. She had laughed at the idea of companionship, at the notion that a cowboy could fit into her life. Yet, she could not deny the growing admiration, the quiet connection, and the respect that had developed between them. Something was stirring within her, something she had never experienced before, and though she tried to ignore it, she knew it would not be so easy to dismiss. Tala's life had always been guided by independence, strength, and self-reliance. But now she realized that connection did not necessarily diminish those qualities. It could enhance them, deepen them, and teach lessons that strength alone could not. And while she would never admit it aloud, she was beginning to understand that Clayton, the cowboy she had once laughed at, might be someone who could walk beside her, not in control of her, but as an equal partner in the journey of life. Little did Tala know, the challenges ahead would test not only their partnership, but also the very beliefs and boundaries she had held for so long. Life, as always, had a way of surprising even the strongest, most independent souls. And as the sun set over the plains, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Tala and Clayton remained unaware that the most unexpected turns of their journey were yet to come. Life in the village had settled into a quiet rhythm, yet there was a new undercurrent in Tala's heart that she could neither name nor ignore. She continued her daily routines, tending to her tasks, guiding the children, and helping her people, but the presence of Clayton had begun to stir something unfamiliar within her. She laughed at the idea of romance, convinced that no man could truly understand her life or her independence. Yet a part of her, buried deep beneath her laughter and stubborn pride, could not help but notice how he had become a constant presence, calm, respectful, and undeniably reliable. One morning, after a week of heavy rain that left the plains muddy and the river swollen, Tala awoke with a strange sense of unease. She dismissed it at first, attributing it to fatigue from the storm, yet the feeling persisted throughout the day. She went about her chores as usual, lifting heavy supplies, checking traps, and ensuring the younger members of the tribe were safe and cared for. Clayton, as always, worked alongside her, offering help without ever overstepping. The villagers watched in quiet admiration, seeing the seamless way the two of them coordinated tasks, moving as if they had worked together for years rather than weeks. It was late afternoon when Tala began to notice physical changes she could not explain. A sense of fatigue settled over her, unusual for someone as strong and active as she was. She felt lightheaded at times, and her usual appetite seemed diminished. At first, she brushed it off, convinced that long hours and the lingering storm were to blame. But as the days passed, the symptoms grew more pronounced. She found herself resting more than usual, feeling both restless and tired at the same time, and experiencing strange, unexpected emotions. One evening, after helping Clayton secure supplies near the river, Tala paused to rest. She watched him from a distance as he worked, noticing how patient and careful he remained, even when he could have rushed the tasks. Her heart felt an unusual warmth, and for a moment, she allowed herself to acknowledge the admiration and affection that had been quietly growing over the past weeks. Yet, the confusion of her new feelings only added to the unease she had been sensing. A few days later, Tala decided to confide in her mother, who had always been a source of guidance and wisdom. They sat together outside their home, the evening breeze brushing against their faces. Tala hesitated at first, unsure how to put her concerns into words. "Mother," she began, "something feels different. I feel strange, more tired than usual, and emotional in ways I cannot explain." Her mother listened carefully, her wise eyes observing her daughter with gentle understanding. "Sometimes, Tala," she said softly, "our bodies and hearts have ways of showing us that life is changing, even when we are not ready to accept it. Perhaps this is one of those times. You must pay attention and seek understanding, for ignoring such signs can lead to confusion." Tala nodded, realizing that her mother's words were both comforting and troubling. She sensed that her life was on the verge of a profound change, though she did not yet know what it would be. Over the next few days, the signs became clearer. Tala's body and emotions shifted in ways that could no longer be ignored. She experienced moments of excitement, fear, and uncertainty all at once. Finally, she decided to confirm her suspicions. After consulting with the village healer who was skilled in understanding the natural changes of the body, Tala received the answer. She was pregnant. The news struck her like a sudden gust of wind. Tala, who had laughed at the notion of romance and intimacy, now faced the reality that she was carrying new life within her. Shock, fear, and disbelief mingled in her mind. How could this have happened? She had always been independent, in control of her life, and cautious about relationships. The idea of bringing a child into the world with a man she had barely known seemed overwhelming. Yet, alongside the fear, there was a flicker of something else: acceptance. She realized that life often unfolded in ways that could not be predicted or controlled. Her independence did not prevent change from finding her, and perhaps, in some way, this was a part of her journey that she could not avoid. Tala felt a mix of emotions, some exhilarating and some terrifying, as she grappled with the reality of motherhood. When she finally decided to speak to Clayton, it was with a mixture of trepidation and resolve. She found him near the edge of the village, repairing a fence damaged by the recent storm. His face brightened when he saw her approach, yet he immediately noticed the seriousness in her expression. Tala took a deep breath, steadying herself, and told him everything. Clayton listened quietly without interruption, his eyes reflecting both surprise and understanding. "I understand," he said finally, his voice calm and steady. "We did not plan for this and it is unexpected, but I will stand by you, Tala. You are not alone in this." His words, simple yet sincere, brought a sense of relief to Tala. She had feared judgment or pressure, yet here was a man who respected her choices, supported her independence, and was willing to face this new chapter by her side. The days that followed were filled with adjustments. Tala, though strong and capable, now had to navigate the physical challenges of pregnancy while maintaining her daily responsibilities. Clayton remained a quiet presence, helping when needed, never imposing but always ready to assist. Together, they developed a rhythm that balanced independence with support. Tala found that accepting help did not diminish her strength. Instead, it allowed her to conserve energy, focus on important tasks, and prepare for the arrival of new life. The villagers, too, played a supportive role. They respected Tala and Clayton, recognizing the bond that had formed between them and offering help where needed. The children looked forward to hearing stories from both of them, and the elders offered guidance on preparing for childbirth and raising a child within the tribe. Tala, who had once believed that her independence meant facing life alone, discovered that strength could also come from community, trust, and shared effort. As the weeks passed, Tala reflected on how her feelings for Clayton had evolved. The initial admiration and respect had grown into a deeper connection, one that was complicated by fear and uncertainty, yet strengthened by trust and shared experience. She began to understand that relationships were not about giving up independence, but about finding someone who complemented and supported it. Clayton had proven himself not only capable but compassionate, patient, and reliable, a partner in every sense except the one she had once believed was impossible. One afternoon, as they walked together along the riverbank, Tala reached out and took Clayton's hand. It was a small gesture, but it carried immense meaning. It symbolized trust, connection, and the willingness to face the unknown together. Clayton squeezed her hand gently, a silent promise that he would remain by her side, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Tala felt a warmth in her chest, a quiet acceptance that this unexpected turn of events might be one of the most meaningful experiences of her life. Even as she embraced the reality of pregnancy and the bond with Clayton, Tala knew that life would not be without challenges. She was tall, strong, and independent, yet she would need to adapt to changes in her body, navigate the uncertainties of raising a child, and balance her own identity with the responsibilities of motherhood. It was a daunting prospect, but for the first time, she did not feel entirely alone. Clayton's steady presence, combined with the support of her community, offered reassurance that she could face the future with courage and confidence. The days turned into weeks, and the months followed, each bringing new lessons, new experiences, and new challenges. Tala's strength, once focused solely on independence and self-reliance, was now channeled into nurturing life, preparing for the arrival of a child, and deepening the bond with Clayton. She discovered that motherhood and partnership did not weaken her. They enhanced her, offering new perspectives, emotional depth, and a sense of purpose that complemented her formidable abilities. By the time the season began to change, with warmer days and brighter skies returning to the plains, Tala had fully embraced her new reality. The laughter that had once been solely about independence now included moments of joy shared with Clayton. She realized that life's surprises, though sometimes frightening, could also bring profound fulfillment. She had learned that strength was not measured solely by physical prowess or the ability to stand alone, but also by the capacity to accept change, embrace connection, and face the unknown with courage and an open heart. As she stood on a hill overlooking the village, the wind brushing against her face, Tala felt a sense of peace and anticipation. Her life had shifted in ways she had never imagined, and yet she was ready. Clayton stood beside her, a quiet, steadfast presence, and together they looked out at the land that had shaped them, the people who had nurtured them, and the future that awaited their child. For Tala, the journey of independence had evolved into a journey of partnership, love, and unexpected joy. A journey that would forever change the course of her life. The months passed, each bringing new experiences, small joys, and quiet lessons for Tala and Clayton. The once independent Apache woman, who had laughed at the idea of romance, now carried life within her, and her connection with Clayton had grown in ways neither of them could have anticipated. Yet despite the changes, the essence of Tala remained the same: strong, capable, and fiercely independent. What had shifted was not who she was, but how she understood strength, love, and partnership. As her pregnancy advanced, the village came together to support her. Women of the tribe shared knowledge, preparing herbs and remedies to ease discomfort, teaching gentle exercises to strengthen her body, and guiding her on what to expect during the birth. The elders offered wisdom from generations past, reminding Tala of the importance of community, patience, and resilience. Even the younger members of the village, inspired by her example, contributed small acts of help, gathering water, carrying firewood, and keeping her company with laughter and stories. Clayton remained a steadfast presence throughout. He never intruded, never attempted to control or dominate, but he quietly assisted whenever needed. He helped carry heavy supplies, repaired structures around the village, and spent hours simply listening to Tala, learning how to anticipate her needs and support her in ways that felt natural rather than imposed. Tala began to rely on his strength, not because she could not manage on her own, but because she realized that sharing tasks and burdens could create space for joy, reflection, and preparation for the future. One morning, after a cool, quiet night, Tala and Clayton walked together along the riverbank. The water shimmered in the early sunlight, reflecting the colors of the sky and the tall grasses along the shore. They spoke quietly, discussing their hopes for the child, the lessons they wanted to share, and the kind of life they wished to provide. Clayton's words were gentle, encouraging, and full of understanding. He did not offer grand promises or gestures. Instead, he spoke from the heart, demonstrating through thoughtfulness and presence that he was committed to walking beside Tala through the challenges ahead. Tala listened, absorbing his words. She felt a sense of calm she had never experienced before, a quiet certainty that together they could face anything. Her heart, once guarded and amused at the idea of love, now carried a steady warmth. She realized that connection did not diminish her independence. Rather, it enriched it. By allowing someone to care, to support, and to share the journey, she discovered that strength could be both shared and multiplied. As the due date approached, the village prepared for the arrival of the child. A small space in Tala's home was cleaned, adorned with soft furs and blankets, and stocked with necessities. The elders and women of the tribe offered guidance on childbirth, teaching breathing techniques, comforting rituals, and ways to ease pain. Clayton worked tirelessly alongside them, ensuring that everything was ready, that supplies were in place, and that Tala would have the support she needed at every moment. The day of the birth arrived quietly, as though the world itself had paused to honor the occasion. Tala, calm yet focused, prepared herself with the guidance of the elders and the support of Clayton. The labor was long and challenging, but Tala's strength and resilience shone through. Clayton remained by her side, offering steady hands, quiet encouragement, and unwavering presence. He never attempted to take control. Instead, he mirrored her determination and provided the support that allowed her to trust her own body and instincts. After hours of effort, a cry pierced the air, a sound that filled the room with life, hope, and joy. Their child had arrived, healthy and strong, a perfect reflection of both Tala's strength and Clayton's steadiness. Tala, exhausted but radiant, held the baby close, feeling an overwhelming sense of love and connection she had never anticipated. Clayton gently rested a hand on her shoulder, sharing in the awe and wonder of the moment without overwhelming her with words. Together they had created life, and together they would nurture it. The village rejoiced at the news. Neighbors, friends, and elders came to offer congratulations, gifts, and support. Children peered curiously at the tiny new arrival, while the women shared stories of their own experiences and offered guidance to Tala. The elders reminded everyone of the cycle of life, the importance of community, and the enduring strength of family. For Tala, this moment represented not just the arrival of a child, but the culmination of her journey toward understanding that strength, love, and partnership could coexist harmoniously. Over the following weeks, Tala and Clayton settled into a new routine. Caring for a newborn was challenging, yet the couple found a rhythm that worked for them. Tala continued her daily tasks, lighter now to accommodate the child, while Clayton provided constant support. Together, they navigated the uncertainties of parenthood, learning how to anticipate the baby's needs, soothe cries, and celebrate the smallest milestones. The experience deepened their bond, solidifying a partnership built on respect, trust, and shared responsibility. Tala, once fiercely independent, discovered the beauty of vulnerability, the quiet strength in asking for help, in allowing herself to be cared for, and in sharing life's burdens. Clayton, in turn, learned the value of patience, humility, and unwavering support. They complemented each other, not by changing who they were, but by enhancing each other's strengths and sharing the journey of life together. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, Tala sat outside her home, holding the child in her arms. Clayton stood beside her, watching the horizon, his hand resting gently on hers. The baby slept peacefully, unaware of the world around, yet already part of a story that would shape generations to come. Tala reflected on how far she had come, from laughing at the idea of romance to embracing love, partnership, and motherhood. She realized that life's most profound lessons often came from unexpected turns, from moments of vulnerability, and from the courage to accept change. The village continued its routines, with Tala and Clayton at the center of a new chapter. Their story inspired others, not just with tales of courage and strength, but with lessons about trust, partnership, and the power of shared experience. Children looked up to Tala not only for her size and skill, but for the way she embraced life fully, balancing independence with connection, courage with love, and strength with compassion. As the seasons changed, the child grew, bringing joy, laughter, and new energy to the village. Tala marveled at the small hands, the curious eyes, and the quiet resilience of the newborn. She taught the child about the land, the people, and the importance of living with integrity and respect. Clayton, equally devoted, shared stories of the wider world, instilling lessons of courage, patience, and the value of understanding others. Together, they nurtured a child who embodied the best of both worlds, strength and compassion, independence and connection. In quiet moments, Tala reflected on her journey. She remembered the laughter at the idea of romance, the initial skepticism toward Clayton, and the lessons learned through shared challenges and trust. She realized that life was not about avoiding change or protecting oneself from the unknown. True strength lay in embracing life fully, welcoming love, accepting help, and courageously stepping into new roles. Clayton, she saw clearly, was not a threat to her independence but a companion who enriched her life, a partner who allowed her to grow in ways she had never imagined. By the time the child took their first steps, Tala and Clayton had fully embraced their roles as parents, partners, and members of a thriving community. Their bond was unshakable, built on shared experiences, mutual respect, and deep love. The village admired them not just for their accomplishments, but for the example they set, showing that strength, love, and partnership were not mutually exclusive, but could coexist beautifully when nurtured with care, patience, and understanding. One evening, as the stars filled the sky and the wind whispered through the tall grasses, Tala stood with Clayton and their child at the edge of the village. The plains stretched endlessly before them, a reminder of the vast world they would continue to explore together. Tala felt a sense of fulfillment she had never known, a quiet joy in the knowledge that life's unexpected twists had led her to a place of profound connection, love, and purpose. The journey had been long and full of surprises. Tala, the 7-foot-tall Apache woman who had once laughed at the idea of romance, now stood as a mother, a partner, and a figure of inspiration. She had faced challenges, embraced change, and discovered that strength was not measured solely by independence or physical prowess, but also by the courage to trust, the ability to love, and the willingness to share life's burdens. Clayton, the steadfast cowboy who had quietly entered her life, remained her companion, her equal, and her greatest support. Together, they faced the world as a family, strong, united, and resilient. The child, a symbol of their shared journey, represented hope, continuity, and the beauty of life's unpredictable path. Tala understood now that life's greatest rewards often came from unexpected moments, from challenges that tested the heart, and from relationships that nurtured rather than confined. She smiled, feeling the warmth of the night breeze, the steady presence of Clayton, and the quiet, breathing miracle in her arms. And so, Tala's story, once defined by independence and self-reliance, evolved into a tale of partnership, love, and shared strength. She had laughed at the idea of romance, faced uncertainty and fear, and emerged stronger, wiser, and more fulfilled than she could have imagined. The plains stretched endlessly before them, full of possibility, adventure, and the promise of a life built together. A life where courage, love, and strength walked hand in hand, illuminating the path ahead.